Hello YouTube friends, this is Rex Supernova and I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to be doing a book review over a fairly older book. However, that's my chair squeaking, sorry. However, I just came across it, not just came across it. I've had it for about a year now. My girlfriend bought it for me, she dedicated it to me, and it's been a while since I've read it. Since I started reading it, but I just finished reading it maybe about an hour ago. I'm going to read you the inscription that she gave to me through the book. It says, "To Rex, my lost boy." That's a nickname she gave me because I'm somewhat of a free spirit and therefore perpetually lost. The most important things are the hardest to say because words diminish them. By Stephen King. From Diana, your night owl. And she is a night owl. She used to be a night owl. Now she's a fake night owl because she goes to sleep at like 10. But she's still my night owl, so I'll take it. So this is Bag of Bones, okay, by Stephen King. This is the paperback edition. We picked it up while we were at the shops over in Cloudcroft, New Mexico. And the book was originally published in 1998. It is, in this copy, 732 pages. Bag of Bones. Really pretty good read. I'm going to give you a rating right now. The rating is, having read many of his novels before, I'm going to say it's a solid 3.5. A solid 3.5. As always with Stephen King, you're going to get great character development, interesting turns. Of course, 70 to 80% of his novels usually have a supernatural element or theme that come into them, and this book is not an exception, which for a while reading Stephen King, I kind of got tired of the supernatural elements, but I don't mind it. At this point in my life, I don't mind it. It was fun nonetheless. So the synopsis of the story is, it's about a writer, Mike Noonan. He's married to Joanna Noonan, and the book starts right away with Joe being killed during a car accident. She's not killed in a car accident, but she's at the pharmacist's, and she watches this thing unfold. I guess the excitement causes a brain aneurysm. She dies. So Mike Noonan is a renowned author of romantic suspense stories. He is working on his latest novel. He's about halfway through. He has a wonderful routine with his wife where he finishes the novel. She helps him write the last line as a sign of fellowship and togetherness, them in unity. Quite beautiful. They drink a glass of champagne and they celebrate, usually with fucking. There's quite a bit of sexual stuff happening in this book, which is quite normal for King, and I do enjoy that. You know, it's part of life. And what happens is, after Joe's death, he has no problem finishing his novel. He finds it an escape, and after he finishes that novel, he just gets writer's block. Painful writer's block, to the point where he gets outstanding panic attacks just sitting in front of his computer. And he can no longer write. But his publisher, his agent, they're expecting novels. They're requiring, through contract, more novels. And smartly, what Michael has done is, early in his career, he had written novels that were never published, either because they weren't accepted or because he didn't put them up for publication. He had written 4 other novels that had never been seen by anybody other than himself and Joe. And he put them in a safety deposit box in the bank. And every year, because he describes how every year he's expected to come out with a new novel for the publisher, some breakthrough thing. And every year after Joe's death, the time comes around, his agent asks, "Has a new novel?" And he goes to the safety deposit, pulls out one of the closest ones to the front, boom, there's your new novel. He does that for 4 years. And in this time, he's grieving quite heavily for his wife. And in this time, he starts having these intense nightmares about a summer home that him and his wife had bought after he made it big with his first novel. The home I'm referring to is called Sarah Laughs, and it's in the back skirts of Maine. So he has these nightmares about this ghostly figure, and these sunflowers, and all these symbols, these things happen. You have to read it. It is very good. 3.5 good. So he has these nightmares. He feels that Sarah Laughs is calling him. So he decides, there's a point where he comes to that last novel in the safety deposit box. He knows it's the last one, which he describes as being one of the first ones he'd ever written. And he submits it to his publisher and agent. As it's being read, reviewed, and the whole process of publication, which takes a bit of time, he goes to Sarah Laughs. And really he thinks that he's being called there because it's going to be an opportunity for him to break his writer's block. And it'll give him the solitude and the change of scenery, and also the sweet reminiscence of his wife, because she does have a studio there along with him at the cabin. So he goes to Sarah Laughs, and he tries to write. Usually, as procrastinating writers tend to do, he winds up fixing things or doing this. One day he's traveling down the main highway, and there's a little girl walking on the highway. So he stops, fearful that she's going to get run over, and picks her up, saves her. She's happy as can be. She just wants to go to the lake. Her mom comes by, the mom picks her up. Her name is Maddie. Kyra is a little girl. And he becomes involved with this mother-daughter family at an extreme and unprecedented level that just circumstantially occurs. What's happening here is Maddie's husband was the son to one of the most powerful and richest men in not only this part of Maine, what they call the TR, not only this part of Maine, but in pretty much America. He's a computer mogul, I guess you'd call him. Millions and millions of dollars. Now, Michael is not scared of people who are rich because he's just as rich as anybody else. He's got money, he's got homes, he's got whatever he needs. He even tells himself, I don't have to ever write for the rest of my life. But he knows people expect that of him. And he wants to be able to do it because that's just what he does. Having a writer who doesn't write breeds frustration within the writer as well as within the readership. So he sees Mr. Max DeVore, who's the man in question, the father to Lance, which is his son, who is the husband of Maddie and mother of Kyra, the mother and daughter that he encounters on the highway here. Max DeVore, millionaire, multi-millionaire, probably a billionaire, and Mike Noonan kind of gets a little trepidatious of it. He knows he can't compete with that kind of money. Having to sum up the rest of the story then becomes a custody battle between Max DeVore and Maddie. Maddie wants to keep Kyra, but Maddie doesn't have money. Lance didn't really leave a whole lot, and he died without much. And Max is not going to help Maddie in any way. Doesn't really like her. He even tried to buy out Lance from the marriage. Here, Lance, I'll give you millions and millions of dollars if you just leave that tramp. Pretty much what happens. But he doesn't. So Lance dies, Maddie's alone, no money, she has a job at a library, and now Max is trying to gain custody of his granddaughter, which is instantly strange because the book describes Max DeVore as being in his 80s probably. No way would anybody gain custody of a 3-year-old child in their 80s. But he would be able to care for her in terms of financial stability. So what transpires is Michael tries to help this family. He gets involved, probably as a way to distract himself from having to write. And in this time, Sarah Laughs begins to haunt him. He gets these nightmares. He has these limited alphabet magnets on his fridge that spontaneously and randomly form into messages. Broken messages, because he doesn't have the whole alphabet. So he goes through, he buys the whole alphabet, he gets these messages, he goes down to the basement one day, and there is a spirit talking to him, and he even feels Joe there. Joe apparently had been coming to Sarah Laughs for the past year, on and off, probably twice a week, without Mike knowing it. Now, Joe was a wonderful citizen. She was part of soup kitchens, she was part of book guilds, she was very involved with the community. And on her calendar, it talks about her involvement with the community, so Mike just assumes, oh, she's coming to stay involved. Later he finds out she's not involved. If you're not into spoilers, which I don't get why you wouldn't be, you're still going to read the novel. It's 700 plus pages of a journey. Go ahead and read it, even if you know what's going to happen. But if you are cautious about spoilers, spoiler alerts coming, because I'm just going to go ahead and tell you all the shit that happens. Joe had totally forgotten all of her responsibilities with these soup kitchens. She does her own thing, and she gets spotted with a mysterious man. Mike starts to think that she's having an affair. Now, one thing I did forget to mention at the very beginning of this synopsis is this. When Joe died, she went to the pharmacy for one thing. She said she had to go pick up her medication. Of course, what else are you going to do with the pharmacist? When she died, and I guess the officials gave Mike her belongings that she had picked up, he found her medication and a pregnancy test that was positive. So she had died pregnant. Fast forward 4 years, he has Sarah Laughs. There are many things happening within this house. A lot of these things telling him to stay away from Maddie. So this plot line with the custody battle that he's become involved in, he's gotten her a lawyer, he's gotten her a private detective, he's gotten all this stuff set up for this little girl. He doesn't know why he's so attached to her, but he is, and he's adamant in helping her. Max DeVore knows he's helping her. He's breathing down Mike's neck. Mike is getting freaked out because people are chasing after him. They're coming after Maddie. They fire Maddie from her job. Sarah Laughs is telling him all these things about Max. All these other locals are telling Mike to get the fuck out of there. We don't want you here. His caretaker even tells him, you're getting into stuff you have no idea the power about. So all this stuff is building, building, and building. And quite honestly, for about 300 pages, these things all come up together, but they seem a little disjointed in how they relate to one another. But you know, and there is a deep indication that they do, but you don't get that revealed quite yet because it's a mystery. So it goes on, and the end of the novel. I'm just going to skip over to the end of the novel. The end of the novel, there's a disposition between the ability for Maddie, the mom of the daughter, to take care of Kyra. And there's this battle back and forth. Max says she can't. She says she can. Michael talks about his relationship with Maddie, which is supposed to be very skimmed because they can't really be having a conflict of interest in the relationship. And suddenly, from one page to the next, there's a phone call on to Mike that says, everything is over. Max is dead. He killed himself this morning. Total blindside. But at that point, there's still like 300 pages to go, maybe 200 pages as to what is going on. There's a deep history in Sarah on the TR. Sarah Laughs refers to Sarah Tidwell, who was one of the first black women performers, soul singer performers in the town. Now, something very tragic happened to her. She was raped and killed by none other than the ancestors of Max DeVore, who were tied up growing up together with the ancestors of Mr. Mike Noonan. So their histories, Max and Mike, kind of coincide through history without them really being aware of it. Max kind of alludes to it, but not so much. So all of this is happening. Now, Sarah's son sees his mom getting raped, and he's subsequently taken and drowned in the river. So her spirit is haunting not only Sarah Laughs, particularly Sarah Laughs, but the whole town. And her spirit is going after all these children who have names starting with K, as some kind of twisted homage to her son Keto, who was drowned during her rape and subsequent death. So all this begins to happen, and at the end it unravels. Micah gets custody of Kyra. There's a whole legal thing. But the main thing is it ends with Bag of Bones refers to a few things. It refers to the ideas that become a story. The ideas of a writer are just bones, and you put them on a page and they're just a bag of bones. There's nothing to them yet. But what they also primarily even refer to are the buried bodies in canvas satchels by Devore's ancestors of Sarah Tidwell and her son Keto Tidwell. They're buried near the lake off of the street, which is just called the street. It's the main street down the little town. Every little town has that one street that everyone walks through. And in order to appease these spirits, Mike takes a bag of lye and brushes it over the whole mess of bones and canvas and rot. And that is the Bag of Bones. And that's what settles the score. So, Bag of Bones is quite an interesting novel. My take on it, the effectiveness of it was, entertainment-wise, fairly entertaining. I started reading it with my girlfriend. We read it out loud to each other. And this is how far we got when we read it out loud to each other. And then she was just like, I'm good. You know, just read it yourself. So I did, and I finished it. Entertainment-wise, it took me a little while to get into it, but then once I hit page about 40, I took off, and I kind of got to page 300 without any hiccups. 300 to 500, things kind of got slow, and that's where I'm talking about all those things kind of building up together, but seemingly unrelated. But still engaging. I read them, didn't have any problem reading them, just a little slow for a while. But then once you got to that last 200, maybe 250 pages, I'm talking about, I just sped through them. They were so engaging, they were so interesting, and you saw all these monumental plot lines coming up together, building bridges and then breaking down all at the same time. And it was quite an interesting ride to go through. And me being a writer myself, I really enjoyed reading about writers and what they go through, and the fact that he gets writer's block. And also, now you're going to have to read this part for yourself. He does get over his writer's block. He starts writing another novel while all this is happening. And that other novel he writes is very pivotal to the plot. So an extremely convoluted plot where everything intertwines together like an ant colony, you know. It's quite a good read. So I might even give it a 4. Let's say I'll give it a 3.75. Let's give it a 3.75 because he's done better. But I will say that this is a very engaging novel and a fun read. Good characters, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.